Thanks everyone for coming to join us for this session to learn about chef compliance. The folks that are behind the pole, would you mind moving, like, not behind the pole? Because I can't see you, and so you probably can't see that. I mean, you don't need to see me, because, I mean... Can you all see back there in the back? There's some seats up here. I showered this morning, I promise. So these seats up here, if you can't see, please. There's also some seats up here. So thanks for joining us for the compliance workshop. And this is a chef-led workshop. So meet my amazing TA, Mr. Nathen Harvey, who is actually a DevOps celebrity. So you probably know him and not me. So Nathen is going to be helping teach this class, and I will be running the class. Nathen will be walking around, helping out, answering questions, and so forth. So today we're going to teach you a little bit about, number one, how to understand the state of your systems, and then after understanding what the state of your systems is, how to use Chef to remediate it. So how many folks here are Chef users already? Oh, wow. Awesome. Okay.
That's great.
Awesome. How many folks are using Chef Inspec and or Compliance? Okay. Awesome. Very cool. So great to hear. So
great. Well, they can.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. All right. Here you go. No, I'm just kidding. So this is going to be like a chorus of bad jokes.
It might be. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Nathen, do you want to do a quick intro and tell everyone about yourself?
Sure. I'm Nathen Harvey. I'm the VP of Community Development at Chef. And I'm going to, as Nicole said, I'm going to help out with the class today. And that means, yeah. Is that better? So with
My name's Nicole Johnson. I am from good old dirty Jersey, and I came here specifically to teach this class and also the Habitat class along with Nathen. But I've been a chef for about 2 years, spent a bunch of time doing infrastructure cloud stuff previous to being at Chef. So yeah, I manage the solutions architects on the East Coast of the country, and yeah, Chef is awesome. So that's why I'm here. And also, Minneapolis DevOps community is probably one of my favorite communities to come visit, so that's another reason why I got on a plane to come here. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the class. You guys and gals, that's a Jersey thing, by the way. We say you guyses when we're talking about everybody, so I'll try to say guys and gals, or I think I saw someone say enemies or frenemies or something like that. I don't know, whatever. But yes, thanks for joining us. All right, so let's get started. So everyone have an SSH terminal on their computer? Awesome. All right, so do me a favor and go to a browser and go to this address. What you'll see is a list of cards, a list of host names, and a list of IP addresses. The cards that we gave you, take a look at the back of the card, the color of the card. So there's 2 decks. Actually, let's do this. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I have my
yeah.
Ooh, yikes. I have my Vanna White with me. So you'll have 2 colors. Look at the color of your card. Look at the suit. If you have a question, if you have a club or a spade, because they do kind of look similar if you're not a card player, let us know, and that will tell you your IP address. So take note of your IP address in case, for whatever reason, you drop connection or get logged out. And for those of you who are probably trying to skip ahead, the username and password is chef.
Anyone else need a card? Yeah.
clubs are missing? Let's see. All right, how about I'll give you an ace of spades. I'll trade you.
This whole group.
Blue clubs are all, dang it. I'm sorry, I forgot to take those out. Here, I'll give you that one.
You shouldn't give me those back, because then I'll give them to someone else.
Thank
I'll
you.
just give you new ones.
Thank you. All right. Here. Can you pass that down to him, please?
One more, sorry.
Yeah, we'll pass. Here,
want that
can you pass me that, please? No, oh, you have, yeah, whichever one that, let's see, okay, yeah, that's club. Oh, you have, here you go. Here we go. I'll take that club. All right, everyone good? Dang, okay. I'm sorry. Huh. So we created 90 machines, and let's see.
Because it's blue. 7 of hearts. Yep. Yep. This is the hardest lab of the day.
Right. The rest are pretty.
You think we're joking? Yeah.
So, who's still missing a card that matches an IP address? Okay, so that's 1. All right, I think we're good besides that, right?
Keep that. Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
Spades,
Have a card. Have a card. Into the labs. Have a card. All right.
Okay. So this must mean that we are absolutely at capacity. Good.
Okay, so to be clear, everyone should have logged in via SSH. Is that right, Nicole?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten to that
Oh, we
just
haven't
yet.
gotten that far.
Yes. All right, so
Sorry.
are we good with the workstations?
Everybody knows your IP address.
Okay.
Good.
And you have taken note. All right. Okay, so go ahead and log into your workstations. So the username is chef, SSH chef at your IP address. Say yes. Your password is also chef. Everyone good? Logged in? All right. So now do a touch first name dash last name. And by first name dash last name, we mean your first name dash last name. So that way, if for whatever reason there's a conflict, we know whose workstation is whose.
So you have to go to the bit.ly. What's the bit.ly?
It's bit.ly / compliance dash MSP.
Okay, I'll come over. Sure.
All right. All right, everyone done that? All right. Do an ls-t, and you should have these things in your home directory. And please let me know if there's any anomalies on the workstations. All right, so now do a which inspec. So if you notice, inspec is operates in the context of the chef.dk runtime. And your inspec version should be 1.31.1. So this is the latest as of yesterday. So for those of you who have been using inspec, I'm not sure which versions you've been using, but this is the latest unless they've released one today. I'm sorry? No, I said yes, the latest. I see what you did there. Yes, hecklers in the front row. I appreciate it. And then finally do a chef -- version. So your chef DK version should be 2.0.28. Yes? Oh, okay, thanks, Nathan. All right, everyone good? Yes.
We started the workshop, and I didn't even have to get you started or kick you off. But before you move on to all the exciting technical details, I just wanted to thank, Nicole and Nathen from Chef so much, because
thanks for having us.
It's really hard to pick the exact right topics that are going to be engaging and exciting for people, and then get people who will show up for you and spend hours doing it.
Yes.
So I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm just very excited that you folks are here.
Thanks for having us. And thanks for Bridget always organizing amazing freaking events. You always do such a great job, so we appreciate that as well. All right, everyone good? Awesome. Okay, so who here is familiar with Chef Automate? Okay, a few folks. All right, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Chef Automate, consider it like the car to the Chef engine, right? So you've got your open source components, so your core Chef that you all are familiar with, so the DSL and some of the other open source components to that. You've got Inspect, which is our compliance automation language. And by compliance automation, what it really is a testing language that allows you to use a server spec-like language and add metadata to that with pertinent information about what you're testing for and details of those profiles. So that's important because when you're automating all these systems, how do you test them? Server spec is good. Chef spec is good for unit testing and so forth, right? But when you go to your security compliance teams, your governance teams, or however your organization is set up, how do you say, these are the security requirements that you've given us, and here's how we verified it, and hand those to people who may not necessarily be familiar with or able to read code, right? So how do you make that something that can be shared and used outside of the operations team or outside of the applications team who's using Chef, right? So the cool thing about that, and I'm going to get to Habitat in a second, but the cool thing about that is now you've given yourself the ability to create sort of a continuous compliance sort of situation, and that's where Automate comes in, right? So the idea here is to use Chef to build the things, deploy the things using, potentially Habitat, which is application automation, and or Chef, and then finally manage the things. So once they're out there, how do you continuously verify the state of those things? How do you continuously say to your CISO, hey, here's the state of my systems? Or if, for example, when WannaCry came out, how do you say, I need to check 10,000 systems for this vulnerability, right? So what Chef Automate gives you the ability to do is to create sort of a complete loop of these management activities around your infrastructure. So what you're essentially doing is saying, okay, I want to deploy the things, check the state of those things continuously, report back into a dashboard that I can look and see the state of those things, and finally be able to report on those things, right? So that's super important because now, as an administrator or someone who's managing systems, or even a security team, now you're able to say, here's the state when I deployed it, here's the state when I test for something specific, and here's how I remediate it using Chef. So we're giving you a complete loop of continuous compliance and continuous automation. Questions? Okay. So either everyone understood or no one understood. All right. So Chef DK, hopefully anyone here who is using Chef is using the Chef DK. What the Chef DK does is give you a set of tools that you need to use and develop Chef. So when I first started at Chef 2 years ago, we had just released the Chef DK, so there was like no instructions. So I was like, what am I supposed to install, and what do I do with all these things, and what do I need Test Kitchen for? And so what we've done is package this stuff all up and give you testing, so food critic, so validating your chef code against specific rules, cook style, validating your chef code against Ruby best practices. However, the difference here is that cook style gives you the ability to validate against Ruby best practices that are relevant and specific to Chef, because not all Ruby is relevant and specific to Chef. Because if you'll notice, if you're using a text editor and you have one of those Ruby plugins, it'll give you all kinds of flags and annoying stuff, and you're like, it doesn't matter because this is Chef, not Ruby. And Chef spec, which is your unit testing. So as you're developing your Chef code, the ability to develop it and iterate on it and test it quickly is given to you by Test Kitchen. So let's do this almost for real. So you're creating a system to run your Chef code on that looks similar to a system that would be out there in your environment, right? You may not be able to touch all the things like your databases and data bags and encrypted data bags and so forth in all situations, but it gives you a very close simulation of what that would look like. So does your Chef code actually run, and a real, sort of integration test. And then finally, InSpec is packaged with Chef DK as well. So all these things are tested together as a version of Chef DK. All right, questions? Yes. Yeah, we will share them. Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're going to get into continuous compliance. So what we've got set up here is a workstation. In this particular lab, we don't have a Chef server because we don't necessarily need it for this sort of condensed version of the lab. But typically, you would have your Chef Automate server, your Chef server, and then your managed nodes, right? So the Chef code that you're writing and the InSpec profiles that you're writing are being done on your local workstation, and you're using Test Kitchen to iterate upon those and test them before you submit them to version control, and they start interacting with your systems. All right, so do me a favor and go to, let's see, sorry, I forgot to put the URL. Oh, the URL is, it should be in the gist that you got your IP address from. Is it? No? Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Your URL is...
There, can't you read that? Let's go there.
Hope you all have your glasses. All right. All right, can you all see that? All right, so browse to this URL, https test-compliance-workshop. Sorry about that. I created a, I deployed the nodes on Terraform, and I was like, oh, I need more. So yes, so sorry about the name. So test-compliance-workshop .chefdemo.net. That's a mouthful. It would have taken too long to destroy everything and create everything again, so sorry. The username and password for this is also Chef. So that host name of your node, go ahead and navigate to that node in the list of nodes that's available. And feel free to poke around too. Take a look at what's in there, some of the dashboards. Yes, yes. So yeah, you do have to bypass the SSL certificate. So, Chef. Yep. So, demo environments. Yay. So no SSL certificates. All right, everyone here? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah, conference Wi-Fi is pretty slow. So yeah, just give it a minute. Once it logs in, it should be okay. Okay. All right. So I mean, this is just kind of navigating around. So you know, we'll be walking through some of the you know, interfaces and dashboards. How do you check out your node and the state of your node? All right. So once you get to your node, you know, you can see the last time it checked in with your Chef server. You can see the last time your uptime, the platform, and you can also, once you click on the node, you can actually view the details of the node. So one of the things that you'll notice is you've got a few tabs up here. So you've got Converge status, so has it converged and checked in successfully, but you've also got your compliance status. Yes?
Oh, you can just close out of that.
Yeah. No, it might be conference Wi-Fi. That is. Are you on Internet Explorer? Do you have Chrome or Firefox? Okay, yeah. Use Chrome or Firefox. That'll probably work better than Internet Explorer. All right. So, question so far as you look through some of these dashboards. All right. So, when you view the run list of your node, you can actually see, you know, what cookbooks define the policy of your node. You can also take a look at the attributes. So all that OHI data, so for those of you who aren't familiar with OHI, OHI is a system profiler that gives you a whole bunch of data about the nodes that you're managing. So that's useful because now you can make decisions and reason about what to do next instead of hard coding everything into your Chef code. So you can view your compliance status. So as you'll notice, there's nothing in here yet. But what we're going to do is put something in here. So we're going to put an inspect profile into check our node. And we're also going to use what's called the Audit Cookbook to report back into Chef Automate. So what you'll see here also is that under org name, we're using Chef Solo. So Chef Solo is, we've built this lab to be as lightweight as possible, so we're not using a Chef server. So instead, we're using Chef Solo. So really quickly, just kind of a review, where in the aggregate status of your infrastructure, if you're managing a fleet of nodes, you want to be able to quickly see the status of your nodes. How many nodes are checking in? How many nodes? So for example, if you have a network outage, and you see a whole group of nodes not checking in, you kind of know, what happened, right? If you see one or two nodes randomly not checking in, that's probably something else, right? So being able to see the overall status, being able to filter and search, viewing the details of your node in terms of what its policy is, what its status is, what its compliance status is, so that, as you say, okay, we've run this profile to see if any of our systems are vulnerable to WannaCry, we can see quickly which ones need to be remediated, right? So going back to Chef Solo, what it actually does is it executes Chef client without the Chef server. So you're essentially running a Chef server sort of in memory. So you're kind of mocking the functionality in terms of how a client would interact with the Chef server. So you can take a look at more info on that. There's use cases for it. You know, this is simply to just make the lab more lightweight for us. So with Chef Solo, the node objects, so that OHI data, that's stored as a JSON file locally. So you can actually navigate to that on your node if you want to check it out. You know, and so that attribute data is stored locally, used locally, so when you run your cookbooks locally, your cookbooks still have access to it. So if I'm talking about things that folks don't really know about, you know, feel free to raise your hand. You know, there's no such thing as a dumb question here. Everyone's here to learn. And, you know, some folks have chef experience, but what I find is that some folks with chef experience aren't necessarily familiar with all the ins and outs. So, you know, please don't let me, you know, just start railing on about something that a bunch of folks don't know about. All right, so what we're going to be doing is running chef client in local mode. So we sort of have like a little wrapper script, you know, using a run underscore chef command here, but we're essentially running the chef client in local mode. So do me a favor, navigate to your home directory. So enough of me talking, we're actually going to do some stuff. All right, so once you're in your home directory, do a sudo run underscore chef. And what you'll see is that we're converging 0 resources because there is no policy associated with our node yet. So once you do that, though, you'll see your converge status in your run history in automate update for your node. So now, what we're going to do is add the Audit Cookbook to our run list. So do a sudo run chef, and in double quotes, recipe square brackets, audit : default, close square brackets, close quote. Can everyone see this okay? All right. Sorry about that.
Would it help if we turned off the lights at all?
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I apologize. I'm very nearsighted, so sometimes, you know, I look at these and I'm like, oh, that's big enough. All right, so everyone get a successful chef client run with the Audit Cookbook? No? Nathan, can you help this gentleman right here? Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. All right. So when you click on the converge status and automate, what you'll see is that now you've got 2 total resources. So we've run the chef gem inspec. So inspec is a gem, and yes. Yeah. All right, so inspec is a gem, and the Audit Cookbook acts as a helper to run inspec on the node that you're managing. The other part of the helper, like I mentioned, goes and reports the results of that inspec exec to chef automate. So what you'll see is that your system is not compliant. So if you go to the compliance tab there, under your nodes, you can see, and this is, you know, sort of an example at a small scale of what it would look like to scan for a specific vulnerability, right? So your system is not compliant. You can see how many control failures have failed, and you can then go drill down into the scan results. How are we doing? Any questions? All right. So what you'll see is that the scan results that are failing are SSH controls. So this SSH control is saying we're not configured to use the correct protocol. So is everyone seeing this in for their node in Automate? No error? Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay.
It did have the compliance.
Okay.
It wasn't green all the way around.
Yep.
Two.
Okay.
So one of my nodes.
Yeah, so let's take a look at your node. Ah, okay, failed nodes. So click on failed nodes. Yeah, okay.
That's maybe.
Okay.
Oh, that's seven.
Nope. You want to, yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so you're in the right place. So go back in here, and you, let's see. Are you in the right node? Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Blue. Okay, hearts. 2. Let's see. You have Queen of Hearts. Blue. Queen of Hearts. Yep. That's you.
One ISSH too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks. All right. Anybody else having trouble? Are you seeing? It should fail. Yep. So severity critical. SSH deconfiguration should, and that's
the client.
yeah. Yep. How's everyone else doing? You got okay. All right.
It's denied when I try and get into the server.
Okay.
My terminal closed.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Is that no? Can you pull up the list, the IP address list? All right.
10 hearts, right?
Yep. 193. Yep. I don't know why. Close Control C out of that. Or oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were in putty. I don't know why. Yeah, give me 1 second. All right. Yes. Yep. Drill down into that. So see where it says critical. Yeah, because can you open the scan results? Yeah. So severity. Oh, pass test. Not sure why the test is passing. All right, give me a second. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's. Yeah. So, let's take a look at your node. Scroll down a little. All right. So scroll up to the compliance tab. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So we should just
Yeah.
break it.
Okay. Let's break it.
Let's break it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's do this. What?
Do you have a node?
I don't, because I think we're at capacity. Very rarely do we get to capacity. All right. So, or I can create one real quick.
We can just log into someone else's. Steal somebody's.
All right.
Fix it.
Okay. I mean, I can just create a new one.
Yeah, that's true.
You wanna? All right. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna create a couple more nodes, and we're gonna go break this. All right. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to skip to the part where we write the cookbook, and we're going to change the configuration. All right. Okay, so he's having a hard time logging into his workstation. For some reason, it's not accepting the password. Or we can just give him one of the new ones.
Let me grab.
Yeah. So these are the ones. Yeah. All right. All right. So what we're going to do now is write a recipe to manage our SSH deconfig. What do I do with it? Okay. So cd to your cookbooks directory. And once you're in there, do a chef generate cookbook SSH. So we're going to create a cookbook named SSH. So for those of you who don't do a lot of chef development, excuse me, I will caution you that the chef executable does things in whatever directory you're currently in. So make sure you're in the right directory when you do chef generate template, chef generate recipe. So once you've created your SSH cookbook, do a chef generate recipe SSH server. So what you're doing here is doing chef generate a recipe in the SSH cookbook named server. So that's the syntax for the chef generate command. So once you've done this, now we're going to create a template to manage our SSHD config file. So this command is chef generate template in the SSH cookbook. So chef generate template SSH. The name of the template is SSHD _config -s, and we're going to tell it where to put it, etc SSH. SSHD config. And I'm actually going to make this a little bigger for everyone. All right. So let me know when you're done doing that. Give me like a nod or something. Good. So in your cookbooks directory. Yep. All right. So Nathan's catching you up, right? You catching him up? Okay. All right. So now cd into your SSH cookbook. So once you're in there, go ahead and use your favorite editor. No fighting over Emacs or Vim today, so whatever you want to use. I like Vim, by the way. Edit your server.rb file. that's in your recipes directory. And so for those of you who don't typically write chef code, what we're doing here is creating a template to render the sshd config file, and we're using the source of the template that we just created, so that's how we're rendering the file. And we're giving it the attributes of owner root, group root, and 0600 permissions. Yes? I'm sorry? Yep. What are you missing? Oh, sorry. Here we go. Okay. Oh, you need that command? Okay, give me one second. All right, chef generate template, sshd config. Oh, you need a space after the config. There we go. Yeah, so it should be config space. No, right after, yeah. No, right, yeah, right after. Yeah, there you go. No problem. All right. How are we doing? To the command? Okay. No, you're good. Yep. Oh, to the template. Okay. All right. Okay. Good? No, you're good. You're good. All right, how are we doing? Almost done? All right. So I'm going to keep going. Give me a shout if you need me to flip back. All right. So now we're going to test our policy. All right. Back here. All right. So considering that you are managing your infrastructure with code, you need to treat that code just like any other code base. So any devs in here? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome. So just like any other code base, you need to do unit testing, lint testing, syntax testing, all that good stuff that you would do with any other code base. Everybody good with the template? No? Okay. All right. So the cool part is that we facilitate integration testing either locally on your machine or in the cloud like AWS, Azure, on VMware, OpenStack, with Test Kitchen drivers. So it's basically a test harness that lets you get a quick feedback loop on the chef code that you've just written. So let's see. All right, so I'm gonna skip ahead because this next slide is kind of integral to what I'm talking about. Let me know if you need me to flip back. All right, so what that's called is test-driven development. And when you're writing code to build a system, the idea is to write the code but also write the tests as you're doing that, right? Once you get really good at doing that, you want to be able to start writing your tests first, because essentially what you're saying, I'm making assumptions about what this system should look like or what this function should be doing, right? So, but for now, we've written the recipe first, and the idea is to add a test, run the test. The test might fail because that's okay, you're iterating upon it, right? So that's why this quick feedback loop is so important, because, imagine having to go, like, deploy a template and install the things and do the stuff, and then have it fail, and it's broken, and now you have to go do it again, right? So that sucks, and that's why sometimes we don't test as much as we should. So that's the idea behind Test Kitchen giving you a quick feedback loop. So You make a little change, you run the tests, eventually those tests pass. Now you know that your code, your infrastructure code, is ready to be shared, right? Because you're probably working in a collaborative environment, and you're probably not the only one writing this code and iterating upon this code. So what Test Kitchen gives you is the ability to, with a single command, create a virtual machine using whatever driver, one of those drivers that I mentioned. Kitchen Converge, that installs the chef tools. Then it copies the cookbooks over, so it synchronizes the cookbooks from your local machine with the machine that you're going to be testing on that you just created with Kitchen Create. And then it runs and applies the cookbooks, right? So it compiles and converges the cookbook is what we call it. So once you've done that and you've seen that your cookbook works, now you have to verify those assumptions that we've written with our tests. And now you've got a full, sort of feedback loop locally or, on some ephemeral machine somewhere in the cloud, right? So, and then Kitchen Destroy lets you destroy the virtual machine. So this is super cool, super useful tool. And, I don't know how many of you have sort of had that aha moment yet, where, you're like, oh, I'm just going to get started with Chef. I want to check it out. And then you're like, oh, let me install the Chef server and let me, upload cookbook. And then you do that and you manage a system and you're like, wait a minute, what's this Test Kitchen thing? And then you have that aha moment where you're like, Kitchen Converge. Holy crap, I just tested my cookbook with one command without having to use a Chef server, right? So to configure how your Test Kitchen, what machine your Test Kitchen uses, what driver it uses, we're going to edit the .kitchen.yaml file. So go ahead in your editor of choice, open your .kitchen.yaml file. So we're going to change our Vagrant driver name to Docker. And just a quick note, the .kitchen.yaml file is written in my favorite language, YAML, in case you didn't notice my sarcasm. I saw some perplexed looks like, huh? What is wrong with her? She must be a glutton for punishment. So be careful with the spaces. And there's YAML linters that are helpful, but spaces are not tabs, and it will tell you so if you try to use a tab. So you're going to change Vagrant to Docker, and you are going to delete the line with the platform name Ubuntu. So what you'll notice is you get to define all these things. What you can also do is define attributes. You can define, for example, if you're using the EC2 driver or the Azure driver, you can define your AMI or Azure image. So there's lots of things that you can customize in the Kitchen YAML so that the system that you're actually testing your Chef code on is very similar or almost identical to what you're going to be running in production. So the next thing that you want to change is the suite, right? So this is the recipe that we're testing, right? So then we're going to change default. So this would be default recipe. We're going to change that to server. We're going to change the recipe to SSH::server. And then we're going to change the location of our inspect tests. Where's Nathan? Did I lose him? Oh, okay.
I'm hiding from you behind the pillar.
Ah, I see. It's super weird when you're hiding behind the pillar, but your voice is up here. All right, how are we doing here? Need more time? Good? Okay. All right, so this is what your test kitchen, your .kitchen.yaml file should look like. I know this is super small, but your driver is Docker, your provisioner is Chef0, always update cookbooks true. Your verifier name is inspec, right? So remember, for those of you who've been using Chef for a while, if you leave this blank, it will default to server spec. So we put verifier name inspec here. And inspec is based on server spec, so if you notice, they are very similar. Our platform, so you can actually test against multiple platforms simultaneously. Our suites, name server, run list, SSH, : server. Our verifier, we're specifying the location of our inspec tests here, and we're leaving attributes blank, right? So this is where you can define specific attributes for the systems that you want to test on. All right, so once you've done that, go ahead and save and do a kitchen list. So a kitchen list will tell you the last action that you've done and the state of your kitchen environment. Everyone get a successful kitchen list? Okay. All right. So now we're going to do a kitchen converge. So remember how I told you you can do kitchen create, kitchen converge? If you just do kitchen converge, it will also create the machine for you. So this should take a couple seconds, and what you'll see is one of one resources updated. So, and that's because we have not done anything except for define that template in our recipe. All right, everyone get a successful kitchen converge? Okay. So once you've done that, if you do a kitchen list again, what you'll see is that your last action should be converged. All right. Has it completed yet? All right. Okay, so kind of quick review. You add a test, run the test, make a little change, and then run the test, right? So here's the part where we verify our assumptions. So this is the run the test part. So because our systems are fixed for whatever reason, this test should pass. Did everyone get a passing test? Okay. All right. Yep. All right. So now we're going to make a little change. So if you open up your sshd config template, not the actual file, your template that's in your cookbook, what you're going to do is comment out protocol 2. So once you've done that, now we're going to run the tests again. So go ahead and sorry. Yep. So yeah, just go down to the protocol and comment out protocol 2. Yeah, so comment it out. Yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. The picture says, yes, the picture says the opposite what I'm saying. So do what I say, not what I did. Yes. Yep. Sorry. There we go. All right, so once you've done that, go ahead and do a kitchen converge. So we're breaking things. Don't tell your boss. We're breaking things. Don't let them know chef told you to break things. So when you do a kitchen verify, your test should fail now. So now think about this in the context of you need to, so say your security team says, we need to verify, I don't know, what's a good one, Nathan, that's not SSHD? We need to verify that we're using SSL3, right? So you could write a script to do that, but how do you write a script, run it on hundreds or thousands of systems, and then report on that, right? So that stinks. You can write it once, run it on a bunch of systems, have it report back into Automate, and be able to view a bunch of nodes at one time, right? So, thinking about this in the context of, fleet-wide system management, that's where this becomes really powerful, right? Here we're writing 1Z, 2Z tests, so, these tests are super easy to read and also super easy to write, but the good thing is that when you have to test for more complex things or add conditional things to them, you can actually do that because inspec is based on server spec, which is based on RSpec, which is based on Ruby. So you can use Ruby in your tests as well. So your kitchen test, so that series of commands that I showed you about test kitchen, kitchen test gives you the full cycle. So if you've got a system already created, a kitchen test will destroy the system that you've created and then create a new one and go through the converge process. So installing the chef tools, synchronizing the latest version of your cookbook, compiling and converging the cookbook, and then running the test, right? So doing all the things and then deleting it at the end. So once you're satisfied with your work, you typically want to do a kitchen test one more time to make sure that you haven't iterated on something that gives you a false positive. So everyone go ahead and do a kitchen test. This will probably take a second. And the other cool thing is that when you're using the Docker driver, because your Docker image is cached, it's way quicker. All right, questions on Test Kitchen, anything that we've done so far? All right. So, like I said, it should be pretty quick. Is everyone at this point, or, okay, good. Okay, so our test-driven development cycle is complete. So now that we've reliably broken our systems, now let's go fix them. So if you do a sudo run chef, and let's make this a little bit bigger. So a sudo run chef, double quotes, so we're going to run our 2 recipes in an array. So recipe SSH : server, recipe audit : default. Everyone got that? You can run it in your cookbooks directory on down. All right, everyone good? Okay. So once you do that, if you go back into automate, now your test should fail because we're breaking things like heathens in the data center. They should have never let us have nice things. Man, that one went over like a lead balloon. That's like a guaranteed laugh. All right, so when you look at your Converge status in Automate and you open your total resources for your node, what you should see is, number one, the resources that have been updated, but also the diff. So you can actually hit this drop down and see what the diff was, right? The other thing that you'll see is when you take a look at the compliance tab for your node, you'll see that it did not pass the test result. So you should see the opposite of what the slide says. All right. So now what we're going to do is go back and fix our nodes. So let's go back and open up your template. So we'll go back here for the path. Let's see. All right. So go back here for the path and change this back to uncomment protocol 2. So once you uncomment protocol 2, what you're going to see is you save it, converge it, your test should pass, and it will update in Chef Automate. So the key here is the Audit Cookbook is facilitating all this, right? So when you do kitchen, do kitchen converge, your test should pass, and when you do your run chef command again, that will update the node, and it will update in Chef Automate. So that Audit Cookbook is that helper that communicates that data back to Chef Automate, right? So giving you that full loop. All right, so once you've done that, do a kitchen converge. And a kitchen verify. So now our tests are passing. And anybody who's used Inspect before, you know, if you want to, you know, go ahead and challenge yourself, you know, go ahead and write another test and, you know, play around with it a little bit. So these are your nodes to break if you want to. All right, so your test should have passed once you've fixed that template. And when you do a kitchen test, you'll see your diff. And going back through here, once you've completed that, do your sudo run chef with those two recipes, right? So did I hear a question? Okay. All right, so again, the Audit Cookbook, that's super important. And so that becomes part of the run list of every node. So think about managing a bunch of nodes, and as you bring them under management, the first thing that you should be adding to the run list is the Audit Cookbook, right? Because it's not necessarily changing anything. Like I said, it's a helper for running inspec on those nodes and reporting back into Chef Automate. So that's an easy way to say, hey, I have all these brownfield nodes out there, and I want to bring them under management, but I don't want to go try and automate things that are already out there and break everything, right? So that's how you quickly understand the state of your systems. So you might have some security baselines. You might have a bunch of CIS benchmarks out there that say, okay, here's the baseline for our security requirements, and here's where we understand our compliance posture, right? So there's been situations where we walk into a customer and they say, hey, we need a way to quickly test for this thing, right? Get the Chef client on the nodes, whether it's through whatever package deployment tool that you already use. So for example, Satellite, sorry, need a drink of water. SCCM, and get the Chef client out there and just add the Audit Cookbook to the run list. So that becomes a way to quickly get those nodes under management, even if you're not ready to completely automate them, right? So you're adding a ton of value by being able to test for specific things and then eventually a broader set of controls, right? So once you've done that, now your test should be passing again. So that's what that full loop looks like for testing, remediating, and reporting using Chef Automate. So now you should get this pass test result. And the thing that you see here is this pass test result, the SSHD configuration protocol should CMP equals 2. That's one of those matchers, right? That's one of those Ruby matchers that's built into InSpec, sort of, brought along through a server spec. So this matcher lets you compare the contents of a config file or the results of some configuration on your system. So those matchers become super useful because you can see what's already on the system. So I'm going to challenge you here. So go ahead and test for the existence of an SSH host RSA key, and test that that RSA key contains begin RSA private key. So anybody want to go ahead and write an inspect control to do that? So I'll give you a hint. Let's go to inspect.io. So for those of you who are not familiar with inspec, there's lots of documentation on how to do this. All right, so knowing what we know about Chef and that we use resources, take a look at the resources list in here. What resource might we use to check for something like that? So let me go back to the deck. All right, so we're testing for the existence of SSH host RSA key. What resource would we use to do that? Okay, all right, good. And how would we test for what that file contains? You said bash? Okay, all right. So you could do it like that, and that's how a lot of folks might start out doing it because that's what you're comfortable with. Maybe that's what you're already using, right? So you throw an execute block somewhere and start out like that. but eventually you want to be able to iterate, right? So if you look at the file resource, and I'll go back here. All right, so if you look at the file resource, here's where you get to start using some of these matchers. Make this a little bit bigger. All right, so be character device, be directory, it should be a file. Okay, so you can use the CMP matcher. So you could do something like this, right? It's so in this example, it says its user should CMP, so its user should compare to root. So in this case, it might be its contents should compare to begin with RSA key or whatever that was, right? So the other thing that you could use is its content should match that phrase, right? So that's probably an easier way to do it. So when you're thinking about what you're testing, think about it in programmatic terms, right? So what is the thing that you're checking for, and what is the attribute that you're checking for, and what are the specific the specifics of that attribute that you're checking for, right? So that's how you kind of figure out, should I use a matcher? Should I use a content? Its contents should match, right? So here's lots of good examples, right? So you might say describe file, that file, and in between a do and end block, its content should match, and you can add MD5 checksums. So in this case, let's see, its contents should match, or not plural, content. You can use the equal matcher for a number value, right? So, try a couple of those out and see what works. So, good question. Anybody here know how to create an inspect profile? All right. So, in your system, you can do it in the home directory. Type inspect. As a matter of fact, I'll just bring up a. Yeah. All right, so what you get is a whole bunch of stuff you can do with inspect. So what would we use? Yep. So inspect init template. So just do inspect init and see what options it gives you. There you go, I'll do it with you. All right, so inspect init help, inspect init profile, right? So your profile name, so it's kind of the same deal as the chef executable, right? So inspect init profile, let's see, we'll call it RSA key. So it creates a project, so it creates directory control, so it gives you like an example.rb, an inspect.yaml. You can create directory libraries, you can create a README. So what's useful about this is when you start thinking about customizing your templates and leveraging things like gems, using profile inheritance, for example, So when you customize an inspect profile, you don't want to have a zillion different versions of the same profile. Instead, you use what's called profile inheritance. So I won't get too much into that for the purposes of this class, but that's what the inspect.yaml is useful for, right? So it's you know, sort of like your metadata.rb in your Chef cookbook. All right, so if I do a tree, where is tree? Maybe I forgot to. Huh? I'm sorry? Yeah, so typically you have your inspect profiles stored. So, so the question is, where do you put your inspect profiles? So starting out, you know, just kind of testing them out, you might, you know, store them locally. But typically you would have your inspect profiles stored in, you know, whatever, you know, artifact repository that you normally use. So you might use them, you might put them in an internal supermarket. There's, you know, an artifactory integration for Chef. In your GitHub repository. So the cool thing is that when you execute your inspect profiles, especially using the Audit Cookbook, you can point it to whatever repository you're storing your inspect profiles in. So that way you've also got versionable and accounted for inspect profiles, right? So as you all, as you know, operations and development folks work with your security teams, you know, you might go to your security teams and say, hey, you know, we want to start, you know, testing for security-related things. What are the things that we should be testing for from your perspective? So they might have a set of baselines, and then, you know, you work with them to say, okay, you know, here are the things that are, you know, sort of global controls, and then here are the controls that are specific to our business unit, our, you know, area of responsibility and so forth, and then you have your inspect controls that live with the cookbooks, right? So there's a couple different layers to it, and so, you know, the organizational aspect of it and the collaboration aspect is super important because you really want to, you know, start thinking about collaborating with your security folks, you know, once you start figuring out, hey, you know, here's something that might be useful for my team, but we still have to take these other, you know, teams and governance, you know, items into consideration. So we've got about 10 minutes. Do you guys have questions? Do you guyses and galses have questions? No?
Is there a use case for using inspect in a way that doesn't use Chef Automate? I mean, are any of these other server-side tools?
Yeah, good question. So his question was, is there a use case for using inspect without Chef Automate or without Chef? Yeah, absolutely. So inspect can be used as its own separate Ruby gem. I see you have an Ansible stickers. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But you actually can use Chef with inspect. You know, the thing about that, right, is, you know, you can run inspect against any system all by itself, you know, report the results, but getting those results out, and, you know, you'd have to figure out a way to do that, right? So there's actually, there actually might be an example in our documentation still on inspect.io, but yeah, you can absolutely use inspect by itself. You can use it as part of a Chef client run. You can use it by itself. You can do, there is a compliance scanning capability, so yeah. What other questions? Okay. So did anybody actually write that control in the midst of all my talking? No? I try to add things that, you know, people ask a lot in customer meetings, because you know, if you're here, you might be a customer, so you will probably ask that at some point. So what other questions can I answer? What questions not? Yep, so there's Vagrant, Docker, vSphere, VRA, Azure, AWS, OpenStack. There's a couple, like community-based ones that random folks in the community have written. I've seen one for, I forget which Unix platform, but it's, you know, yeah, definitely, yep. So there's also an InSpec AWS and InSpec Azure set of controls, so you can actually test against the AWS and Azure APIs. They're still, you know, sort of not filled out all the way, you know, but they're also open source, so you can contribute to them. So those will become, you know, very useful as, you know, more controls get written into those. So the other thing to note too, and to your question, is with Chef Automate, you get a bunch of CIS benchmarks out of the box that have already been converted to InSpec. So that's also super helpful because now you've just got, you know, sort of a carte blanche to say, how are we doing on basic security, you know, CIS benchmarks? So from there, you can go customize them and say, okay, you know, here's the things that we care about, here's the things that we don't, and that's where that profile inheritance capability becomes really important because, you know, not all the things are relevant to, you know, your team or your organization when you're testing for CIS benchmarks. Thanks for the question. Yes?
What are the advantages of using InSpec over just ServerSpec? Just automation, hardware pushes it up to a central server, you know, there's much of that, but it's good format for that. Compare and contrast the two.
Yeah, great question. So his question was, what's the difference between using InSpec versus ServerSpec? So you'll notice that they are very, very similar, and that's intentional. The difference is that you can add metadata to InSpec, and let me go find an example for you. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. I don't. Let's see. Yeah. But I do have. Let's see. Nope. All right, so let me make this a little bit bigger. All right, so you see this control. This is an InSpec profile, but the difference here is this control, so this is a CIS benchmark that's been converted. So this control has all this metadata that's associated with that particular control. So you've got the control title, description, and impact. So the, you know, sort of like red and green and the critical versus non-critical that you saw in Automate, and just, I mean, generally for, you know, weighting some of these controls, this is the metadata that you can associate with InSpec profiles, and this is the biggest difference between InSpec and ServerSpec. So generally speaking, we are recommending that folks start using InSpec, and, you know, eventually, if, you know, as you iterate on your old cookbooks, start, you know, writing your tests in InSpec. So, you know, not the highest priority to go refactor everything that's old into InSpec, but definitely start using InSpec for new cookbooks. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions? All right, so we've got about 5 minutes left, and yeah, if no other questions, thank you very much for taking the time. Appreciate it. And you can reach Nathen at
nharvey@chef.io, or you can find me on Twitter. It's just Nathen Harvey.
yes, and you can reach me at nj@chef.io. Can you believe Nicole at chef.io was taken already? Yes, that was Nicole Forsgren's fault. Yes, so email us anytime. Yes, sorry.
You mentioned that the slides would be available?
Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
Where can we share those?
Good question. Wherever Bridget posts them. Or actually, we'll probably put them on SlideShare or something too.
Okay.
Yep, certainly.
The DevOps website.
Yeah. All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time.